All right, welcome everybody to the New Jersey Youth Soccer Legends Series. Today with us, special guest, Nick LaBrocca, New Jersey native, Howell Township, went to Rutgers University and had a very respectful career with the MLS, Colorado Rapids, Toronto FC, Chivas USA, Colorado again, and the Chicago Fire. A long career starting in 2007 and finishing up in 2016. A person who I've had the opportunity to work with, somebody I respect dearly because of his knowledge and his approach. Nick LaBrocca, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Nah, no worries, no worries. Let's talk a little bit about you growing up. You grew up in Howell. How'd you fall in love with the game, mate?
I was just a high energy kid who I think my parents just wanted me to burn some energy, and it was a perfect mix. I played a bunch of different sports. I played soccer, obviously, baseball, basketball. I ran track. I wrestled. So I did a little bit of everything. But soccer was the sport that satisfied my needs. That was the most challenging, and probably my parents loved because I was able to run around and get some energy out, keep that away from the house.
So when did you realize that you loved it the most, and you kind of, did you ever start to roll your eyes at the other sports, or you just kind of coasted along? And when did you get serious?
So it was when I got the most serious was high school. At that point, I was still playing three sports. And then when I started just eliminating sports, I stopped playing. Obviously, I wasn't the tallest guy, so basketball was never really going to be a fit for me. But once I stopped playing baseball, and then I started wrestling, and then I ran track in middle school and the first part of high school. And I really just did those to stay in shape because there weren't many soccer options. So once I probably around that time, that's when I started realizing, all right, soccer's for me, and that's all it's going to be.
Yeah. So the other sports, you were just doing them for fun. Obviously, it wasn't like you weren't thinking to yourself, "Yeah, I want to be Carl Lewis" or anything like that. You were just doing it for fun, yeah.
Yeah, I was just doing it for fitness, to stay in shape for soccer. I mean, obviously I was doing both, but I figured, all right, if I can take the most out of these other sports, or the strength of wrestling and the battle, you need nice center of gravity, you need to be strong, and it's something that I needed to learn because I was always the smallest, or one of the smallest guys. And then I was running track because okay, well, I'll get those extra miles in and I'll be extra fit. So it was my way of not only challenging myself, but trying to get a leg up on what my competition was.
And was there times when there was like a conflict where there was a track meet or a basketball game and soccer practice?
Okay.
And how did you handle that?
Soccer went out. When I was younger, when I was much younger, it was always, all right, the game took priority. But if there was a soccer practice and, let's say, a baseball practice, soccer was my sport.
Okay, so the competition kind of took priority.
Mm-hmm.
And what about, would you tell these coaches of track and wrestling and basketball, would you tell them up front that, hey, listen, I like playing basketball, but soccer's my passion, and there might be games that I'm missing? Or how did you approach that?
I think, I don't know why it was. I mean, people probably just from knowing who I was, I think they just knew soccer was the number one priority, was the number one love. So I think everybody going into it knew. When I wrestled, that was kind of an easy one because the soccer coach was also the wrestling coach in middle school. The track coach, when I went in high school, I went to Christian Brothers Academy, and their cross country, their track programs are phenomenal. So once I think the soccer coaches were also in the coaches' ears a bit to be like, all right, well, he's a soccer player. Don't forget that he's a soccer player first. So then my sophomore year, that's when I stopped doing track, and that's when the sole focus became only soccer. There were no other sports.
Awesome. You said something interesting there, and it just kind of sparked a question for me. The cross country, right? Obviously, that would have helped your endurance levels so much. You know, how much of an impact do you think that did that have on you long term, having that ability to just run all day?
Yeah. So that was definitely my strength. While playing, so not being the biggest guy, not being the strongest guy, not being the fastest guy, I realized that when at the end of the game came around, I was running at the same pace I was in the beginning of the game, while the other players, they started off faster, they started off stronger, but then because of my fitness advantage, I was outrunning people in the last 20, 30, 40 minutes of the game.
Yeah, I can imagine that had a big impact on you. Let's talk a little bit about your life as a player at home. Like you didn't reach your level just from going to training 2 times a week. You would have practiced on your own a ton. How was the training environment outside of your actual team training? Like, what did you do? Did you have a park down the street? Did you practice on your own? What did you used to do as a kid, do you think, to clock up the hours?
So the area that I grew up in, my friends, they were not soccer people. So getting to parks, hanging out with friends, that it was never like oh yeah, my buddies, like my neighbors around the block or in the town, like, oh yeah, let's go play soccer. So it was always me. It was always just me. So first I'll apologize to my parents, because the house, the shed, the garage, the fences, the windows, the gutters, you name it, they took a beating, to the point where I would knock a fence down, and I would just tell my dad, I'm like, oh, there's windy out there. My dad's like, it wasn't windy. There's no wind out there today. So it was a lot of that, just being creative. I was just being creative, you know. There wasn't a wall that was necessarily close, so I used the shed. I used the doors of the shed and the fence, and I would just try to be as creative as possible. Like, we didn't have like it's not a huge yard, but you know, I'd use a tree to pass the ball back, and then I would just kind of find different combinations. So it was more, my reactive abilities were very, and my creative abilities were good because of that. So it was all on my own.
Yeah, you just made up stuff as you went along based on your surroundings, right?
Yep. And then I would try to limit the punishment I would get for putting dents in everything.
Talk about
that's just outside the house.
Yeah, yeah. So I think one of the most effective tools that you can have as a kid when you're playing is imagining that you're actually in the game. Did you used to like dribble around and imagine there's people around you and take them on and drop shoulders and dips and so on? Or were you like more of a rep guy, or did you do a little bit of both?
I was the first one of that. It was, I would visualize everything, because then it became more realistic. I was never, and still not, somebody to just do something just to do it. And I would also remember all these different scenarios that happened in games and practices. I'd recognize areas where I felt uncomfortable, and I think, okay, why didn't it work? So for me, that was a great time to practice that. And, you know, granted, you can't replicate it. You can't, even if you're playing with friends, you can't really replicate it, but you can replicate it in your mind, because you remember how it feels. You remember the scenario, you know what you needed to do to prepare differently. So that's that's what I would visualize. I'd visualize where the players were, and then what I needed to do, where I needed to take my touch, and then if it didn't go right, what my reaction needed to be. Because a lot of times the person who reacts the best gets the full advantage.
It's crazy how strong the imagination is, and how there's this link between all these established players and that where they put themselves in a scenario where there's people around them and they're just, like I said, dipping shoulders and dropping imaginary nutmegs on people. Let's talk a little bit about your club soccer. Where did you play club soccer?
So I started off with the local town. I played in Howell, I played in Jackson, and then around that time I realized it was people who I'm playing against. I see they're getting recruited by colleges, and I'm not getting any recognition. So then that's when I moved over to Match Fit.
Okay.
So that was my progression, and I did that. I didn't join Match Fit until I was a junior. I think a junior in high school.
Okay.
So it was pretty late. It was pretty late in my process.
Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting. So you played at you said Howell and Jackson, right?
Yeah.
And you're obviously the star of the team, yeah?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
You were relied on. Let's just say you were relied on. You were one of the better players. You were relied on. I'm guessing, did you play centre mid?
Yeah.
All right. So that obviously allowed you to get a ton of touches. And what I like to think is, and I think a big part of development, and I think it's an advantage how you didn't go to a big club until later on, because you were playing every minute of every game. You were relied on. You had to obviously build some leadership skills and dig your team out of holes on a regular basis. Do you feel like that was an advantage that you stayed that long because you just kept playing and you had so many hours in the oven, so to speak?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. I think it's a combination of everything. You know, obviously there's a certain level to it where you need to you're not allowed to be in your comfort zone. You have to overextend yourself a bit, which is good. You know, you also the unpredictability of, okay, who shows up to practice, who doesn't, what your numbers are. So, you know, yeah, you need to be that consistent person. So you're not allowed to, you can't let yourself let down at all. So yeah, I mean, those are valuable things that I still hold with me today.
Yeah, that's awesome. So from there, you went to Rutgers. You had a fantastic career at Rutgers. When you first walked in, from what I understand, you didn't get straight in the 11, did you?
Trying to think. It actually worked out to be a little quicker than I thought. I think it might have second game of my freshman year. So I think I was definitely in the mix when I first started out, and then once I was able to get my foot in, and I think I got that start, my first start, which I think was like maybe my second game. Or yeah, it's hard to remember, but once I got in, I try to make sure that I don't take my foot off the gas. I don't put it on the brake.
So you came on and you did well, and then after that you became a starter. Was that in center mid?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Center mid, two-way, and I just ran the engine until it ran out of gas.
Yeah. Box to box, right? Obviously, because of the endurance levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the only way. And I love being in the mix. At that point, obviously, college is a bigger, faster, stronger. You know, it was that mentality, and it sort of still is the same. So, taking a beating from older people, I mean, I kind of enjoyed it, and then it also helped me the mental edge. It helped my intelligence on how to win battles, or how to facilitate somebody else winning their battle, without, obviously if I'm a skinny guy and I'm going into a tackle against a man, I mean, chances are if I try to win it with sheer power, it's not going to go too well for me. So figuring out different ways to win those battles, and affect the game, and use the opponent's strength against them. That's what I started to realize at that point.
So tell me if you can remember the transition from youth soccer to college soccer, like the speed of the game. Was there a big difference?
For me, I think because of all the mental preparation, no. When it comes down to the soccer and the ball movement and everything like that, the speed of other players in their strength, that was a big change. That was a big change for me. But at the same time, leading up to it, our club, we played against a lot of semi-pro. We played against college teams, of like D1 through D3. So going into it, that's probably why mentally I was, for the actual speed of play, I was probably more prepared than what I realized.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're playing college ball. How did you make the step to the pros? Did you get drafted? Did you try out? How did that happen?
So I got drafted. After my senior season. And it was kind of a junior year. So after my sophomore year, I was starting to get recognition, and they were pulling people out. It was called a Generation Adidas and everything like that. And I was starting to get recognized. And then my junior year, our first game of the season was in North Carolina. We had like a Friday, Sunday. It was against UNC and it was against Wake. So it was big games. So the night before we were traveling out for those first games of the season, I got food poisoning, and I wound up being already a skinny guy. I wound up losing 20 pounds, and then never regained that weight through the entire season. It's a short season. So that weekend and that entire season was a struggle because I felt like I had no energy. So then fast forward into my senior season, and then I was able to find a rhythm, a few games into the beginning of the season, and then was able to start getting recognition again. And then got drafted in the winter after my senior season.
Nice. You said something, I'm going to go back to the college ball, but you said something about the college being a short season, right? Do you think it's too short? Because I mean, when I played, we used to play like, I think 36 games a year, and it kind of used to go all year. And I felt like in the second round of games, that's when you would really hit your stride as a team and even as a player. And I'm sure you experienced that with the MLS. Do you feel like in college ball you kind of get started and then it's over?
Yeah. I mean, granted, I'm always the person who wants it to go longer. Whether that be a practice, I'm like, oh, why is practice? I'm always like, oh, why is practice? The same thing's going to be for the season. You know, what you go through a fast preseason. One month into the season, you're already halfway done. So you have all that preparation for 2-3 months. It's kind of a bummer. You know, you want, as a player and as a competitor, you want to be competing as long as possible. So, you know, obviously you want to get into the tournaments and you want to perform in the tournaments so your season goes longer. But And then spring, you know, you still want that. You want as many games as possible because you want to improve. You want to compete. You want to, you know, whatever it is, whatever motivates you. Some people it's school pride. Some people it's like, oh, I was recruited against this guy and he went, you know, he went to the school or I went to the school that he wanted to go to. So you get fired up about it. So spring season, sometimes you don't really get that. You don't really get that opportunity because also the weather. Spring's very unpredictable in the weather. So and it's easy to cancel those games. So a lot of times you lose those games too. Even the 6 games that might be scheduled, if it's iffy, they just cancel. It's no big deal. So
yeah, I feel like most of the guys that are going into college to play soccer, they definitely love the game. They're like soccer junkies, and I put myself in their position. I'm like, geez, that's just way too short for somebody that loves it. You end up playing 15 or 20 games in a whole year. I just feel like it's not enough. I mean, our youth players play more than that.
Yeah.
So let's keep going with the pro thing. So walking through the door at your first pro practice, what were your thoughts?
My thoughts were
you nervous and
yeah.
sure
I was nervous. It was my first time. So I'm growing up in New Jersey, staying local for college, and then getting drafted out. I mean, it was kind of crazy. Like going out was nerve wracking, but we actually didn't get to going out to Colorado. We didn't really get to train all that much in like my first like 2 or 3 weeks. We had our physicals, but when we got in there, it was like the craziest snowstorm ever over there, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's never like this." And spending 6 years there, it was never like that. But it was, I think my first session was about a week in, and it was like half of a session, and it snowed for 5-6 days straight. And when it snows out there, it snows. And then finally our first day, like we get to go out there, it was like 70 degrees outside in the middle of February, in the beginning of February. And then practice gets cut short after 30 minutes because all of a sudden the temperature dropped 40 degrees. So everybody then had to run back into their cars because frostbite. Everybody's in shorts, t-shirts, sweating, and all that stuff. So my experience wasn't normal. So it's just like you're just always on edge. All right, when are we gonna play? When are we gonna be able to get out there? And I mean, you finally do, and it's awesome. You're like, oh man, this place is amazing. And then all of a sudden, the temperature drops. You're running off the field. And then immediately after that, we went on a trip to Mexico. So we're playing at Pachuca, and we're playing against their reserve teams and everything like that, and other scrimmages we have set up. So, I mean, it was probably a perfect start because you didn't really have time to really sit and think about, all right, and worry about like your training sessions. It was just like you're just on edge. So you're doing something all the time that's not soccer related. So you get to know the guys. It makes it easier. And that group of guys, they were phenomenal. They were aces.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. How did you integrate yourself with the older players? But you landed on a good bunch of guys, did you?
Yeah. They were. I mean, they were a fun group. They were a competitive group. They were a perfect mix of, on the field they wanted to win. They'll do whatever it took to win, and that was a great thing to see. But then what was even great was that they were a tight group, but they weren't like a tight and closed group. They were a tight and welcoming group, that were just like, be yourself. Like they're not looking, they're not judging, they're not doing anything. They just want people into the group who are going to be themselves. So once that was a huge eye opener for me as a player and as a person, because it's that's true. I mean, why would I want to be? Why would I try to be somebody else, or why would I not just embrace who I am as a person, right? Because at the end of the day, if you don't, then you never really get everything out of yourself. So it's hearing that from those guys and hearing the lessons that they share with their experiences. I was like, oh, wow, that's deep.
Yeah, so they were like that because they had the opposite experience, you think?
Maybe. These were guys that some of them played in World Cups. They were on national teams. So I'm sure that they've experienced it. A lot of them knew each other. They ran in the same circles for a long time through their youth days. So I'm sure that they've had experiences all over the place.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because I know that stepping into an environment like that, if you don't feel welcome, it can definitely affect you mentally as a player. So you started training, you get the preseason done. When do you start seeing minutes?
Not that, definitely not that season. I got into a couple games. One was a last 2-minute sub. Wasn't rostered all that much. We had an amazing reserve. We won our reserve league, so our reserve team was legit, and that was fun. So we were still able to get games because they had the reserve league back then, and there wasn't a huge USL, and there wasn't a USL connection at that time like there is now. So it took until my second season, and actually I didn't get that opportunity, and I wouldn't have unless everybody on the team got hurt, and everybody on the team got hurt the week before the start of the season. So there was a preseason, the final preseason tune-up. It was in, I think it was in the Bahamas. I believe it was in Bermuda. It was in Bermuda, and they brought most of the guys. They didn't bring me, so that obviously tells me I'm bottom of the list. And turns out everybody got hurt. All the midfielders on the team got hurt, and then so that left three healthy midfielders. So the day before that first game, which was against LA, it was Beckham's, I think, first time coming to our field and coming and playing in Denver in a league game. And then the starting center mid, so of the three of us, he gets food poisoning. So then he can't go. So by default, there I am, bottom of the barrel. Played, we won, we dominated the game. And then ever since then, the coach was like, all right, well, I can't take you off the field. It's like, your job is to make sure I can't take you off the field. So I was like, okay. So I'm in the game. I'm back in the game. So ever since that point, I made that was my big external motivation. It's like, okay, don't give him the opportunity. So, and then that year I played, I don't know, a ton of games.
All right, that's awesome. So you obviously, since you got that chance, and then you came on and you played, and then you somewhat started to see more minutes. So is it fair to say that there was nothing really wrong with your game? It wasn't like you were behind. It was just the roster was so stacked that you just weren't going to get a chance because there was all these established players in there already that were playing. But really, you were good enough right from the beginning then. Is that how you feel?
Yeah. I mean, personally, I mean, obviously you have moments where you're like, all right, am I good enough? Am I not good enough? But then, I mean, at the same time, there's never I always believe in myself. I'm like, all right, well, just give me a chance. Just give me a fair chance. That's always my mentality. And then if I sink, then I sink, and I'm going down, at least giving it an honest effort and with one that I can hold my head up. And then wherever the cards fall, like, let them fall. I always knew that I could play with those guys. I also understood that, all right, it's professional soccer. You know, it's about results. It's about personalities. It's about a coach. He or she has a decision to make, to put people on the field that he knows and trusts. Well, I'm a young guy. I played in one legitimate game the previous year. Is he going to play me or the person who played and grew up with Manchester United, you know, or is he going to play the guy who's national team? Maybe he's hurt, you know, but who's he going to go with? Naturally, his job's on the line, his life's on the line. I mean, so I understood that. So at the same time, I'm like, all right, well, just come on, give me a chance. And I just want a fair chance. But knowing, training with those guys, knowing that I had their respect, and I felt like I earned their respect. At that point, I'm like, all right, well, I can do this. I can do this. I just need to stay patient. I know that I just need to understand that it's not going to go my way. I'm a young player, and I'm a new player. So it's about recognizing moments. It's about understanding opportunity and, you know, taking advantage of luck, of an opportunity. Everybody needs a break. Everybody gets a break. It's a matter of whether you're prepared or not to capitalize on it. Fortunately for me, that time I was able to do it.
Yeah, sounds like you had a great mentality, and that's why you were able to pounce on it. That's great stuff, Nick. Your highlight in your MLS career, what was it?
Highlight. So if you go from like a career on paper level, it would be the lead up to the 2011 All-Star game. So little backcourt.
United, right?
Yeah, played against Manchester United. Was selected to the MLS All-Star team, and so at this point, I had gone from Colorado to Toronto to Chivas. So I was playing for Chivas USA, and the coaches they traded for me, and I was always good with being like the number 3, 4, or 5 guy on the team. I was always good with it. I was always good with roles and understanding and not being the focal point. And then the coaches at Chivas USA, they brought me in. They traded for me. They said, "Oh, well, what about you playing as like the number 10?" I'm like, "Huh." I'm like, yeah, sure. And so like I was able to find my rhythm, scored a few goals, built up some momentum. We had a fun team that was great at keeping the ball, so it was like a nice mix. There was a deep line center mid player who just can always find the ball in the pockets, and I loved ghosting into those spaces. So the build up to that was fun because it was a good brand. It was exciting, and I was able to get in front of goal, and I was able to score some goals. So that's always fun. And then being able to be selected to the All-Star game, you're play against Manchester United, and the game was back in New Jersey. So it was, combine the soccer piece of it, the nostalgic piece of it, being back home, playing at Red Bull Arena. You know, my parents got to go, my family got to go. So piece that all together. That was pretty cool.
That's awesome to hear. So I've got one more question, and then I've got some quick questions for you that I'm going to want you to answer quickly. So retiring, I know that it's a sad time when you have to walk away from the game. How have you handled that? How's it been? Not only now, but even a year after you retired. How was it? How did you feel like being away from the team and the boys and that life that you were kind of used to for all those years, all of a sudden was gone?
It was different. It's a weird balance. It's a very, very weird thing. You spent all this time working towards something, pushing yourself, and all of a sudden it's like, well, you're done. It's over. You know, for me, it was all right. It was a little easier to step away because of my first kid was born in that process of what would have been preseason. So when she was born, I was like, okay, it was a good run. I'm good with it. And then what then started to happen was the void that it left for me, and it wasn't fully necessarily the soccer piece of it. And granted, I love the game. I absolutely love the game. I love playing the game. But having something there that is competitive and that hurts, right? The thing I missed the most was coming back every single day and being so sore that I can't do anything. Like there's nothing left. So finding that took a little bit, took me a couple of years, and now I just like to run. I just run, and I run stupid long distances for no reason. Just because I like the challenge. Because I like the challenge. I like to mentally challenge myself. See where my breaking point is and get to that point.
Awesome. Real quick, answer these questions. Favorite player?
Favorite player had to be Valderrama.
Wow.
Valderrama.
Interesting. Team?
Favorite team right now? Well, before Barca.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
First pro game you ever went to?
First pro game. We went to the '94 World Cup. It was Italy and Ireland.
How about that? Favorite stadium you've played in?
Ooh. Seattle. Seattle and Portland.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hardest opponent ever faced?
Hardest opponent. Definitely Seattle. Seattle.
Okay. You don't have to answer this. You can say no comment. Best coach you ever had?
Robin Fraser.
Nice. Finally, in less than a minute, advice to a young player.
Love what you do. Just love it. Find something you love and then do it. Don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about other people. Don't worry about expectations. Go out and do it, because if you love it, you're going to want to do it more, and then you're going to do it more, and then eventually what's going to happen is you're going to get to exactly where you want to go because you put the work in just purely because you love it.
All right. Well, listen, Nick, I want to thank you for coming on. I love hearing your story. This is the second time I've heard it, and I just love how you kind of worked so hard to get there, and obviously you stated today your mentality was amazing through the whole thing, and just the way you processed things and saw things fairly and waited your turn. I think that's admirable and priceless, I think, for any kid to hear that. You can get to the doorstep, and some kids, I've worked with kids that didn't have any patience and just threw the towel in, and you're an example of somebody that had the right mentality, patient. You obviously, like you said, some luck came along, an opportunity came along, you seized it, and you carved out a very respectful career for yourself in the MLS, and it's great stuff. And again, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. We'll be launching this thing at some point, and I'm sure your experience is going to inspire many.
Thanks, James. Appreciate it.
No worries, man.